Welcome to The Explainer. I am so excited to guide you through today's topic. We're diving right into Marshall B. Rosenberg's nonviolent communication model, often just called NVC. We'll be looking at the hard research and some real-world applications to see exactly how this model practically resolves conflicts, everywhere from bustling primary school classrooms to, well, our very own living rooms. Okay, let's jump straight into this profoundly game-changing idea from Rosenberg. It completely reframes how we view every single argument, breakdown, or conflict we ever experience. He says that when we judge someone else, we're actually just expressing our own unmet needs, but in a really tragic, alienated way. If we can truly wrap our heads around that, we unlock an entirely new way of interacting with the people around us. Here's our roadmap for the explainer today. We're going to start with the language of disconnection, walk through the 4 steps of NVC, decode our feelings and needs, look at some hard empirical data from schools, and finally, apply all of this to our everyday conflicts. All right, starting off with Section 1, the language of disconnection, building walls instead of windows. So there's a really stark contrast between our communication defaults. On one side, we've got what Rosenberg calls life-alienating communication. Honestly, this is the default setting for most of us in a heated argument. We use moral judgments, we blame others, we say things like, "You make me feel guilty," which totally denies our own responsibility, and we make demands driven by the threat of punishment. But on the flip side, true empathic connection, that requires us to observe without evaluating and fundamentally take responsibility for our own thoughts and feelings. It's a massive shift. Moving right along to Section 2, the 4 steps of NVC, which is basically our blueprint for connection. Here is the crucial part. It's all about mastering these 4 straightforward, but frankly, really challenging steps. Step 1. Observe exactly what's happening without mixing in your own evaluation or judgment. Step 2. Express the emotion you're actually feeling. Step 3. State the underlying need causing that feeling. And finally, Step 4. Make a very clear, specific, concrete request for an action that would enrich your life. Sounds simple, right? But it takes practice. Let's actually see this in action. Notice how the teacher here doesn't just say, "Frankie, you're being so messy." Instead, they state a completely factual observation. "When I see your books on the floor, then the feeling. I feel annoyed. The underlying need, because I need more order." And finally, a concrete, non-demanding request. "Would you be willing to put them in your bag?" See what happened there? It completely removes the blame and opens up a real dialogue. Now, to pull those 4 steps off effectively, especially the feeling and needing parts, we need the right vocabulary. Which brings us to Section 3, decoding feelings and needs, the vocabulary of empathy. Our source material provides this absolutely incredible cheat sheet of universal human needs, grouped into well-being, connection, and self-expression. Things like safety, empathy, and authenticity, they aren't just vague concepts. They are core human needs. Recognizing exactly which need is present in a given moment is literally the lifeblood of the entire NVC process. But how do we know if those needs are actually being met? Well, through our feelings. Expanding our emotional vocabulary gives us a much more precise tool to work with. Think about it. If your needs are met, you might feel peaceful or glad. But if they're unmet, you might feel mad, sad, or scared, which can manifest as frustration, loneliness, or exhaustion. Being able to accurately pinpoint these feelings is how we kickstart the whole process of reconnection. Okay, so it's one thing to talk about a neat theoretical model, but we wanted to see if this actually holds up in the real world. Let's look at the hard data. In Section 4, testing NVC in schools, specifically focusing on some empirical data from Italian primary schools. To really test this and track the model's impact over an entire year, researchers gathered a massive data set, 511 questionnaires from students. They basically compared a group of kids trained in nonviolent communication against a control group with 0 training, and they measured specific unpleasant situations happening in the classroom. And you guys, the data is just fascinating. It reveals a dramatic, statistically significant drop in unpleasant situations regarding relationships with teachers for the students trained in NVC. Meanwhile, and this is wild, the control group actually saw a slight increase in those exact same unpleasant situations over that same period. Similarly, when we look at frustrations directly related to education and achievement, those numbers absolutely plunged for the experimental group after the training. And again, the control group saw no benefit whatsoever. This proves the model's profound, measurable impact on the learning environment. Literally, by just changing how the classroom communicates, the students felt significantly less friction in their daily learning. Tracking this transformation month by month, the results are staggering. The shift from December to June shows a crystal clear reduction in violent conflicts, dropping from 33 to just 15. We also see a sharp initial increase in nonviolent mediation processes as they started testing out the tools. Even the number of kids completely withdrawing from conflict dropped from 11 down to just 1. The overall volume of conflict was practically cut in half by the end of the school year. That is a real game changer. Let's transition into our final section, Section 5. Transforming everyday conflicts. We're going to see how this data translates to deeply personal human moments, specifically finding empathy in situations like bullying and sibling rivalry. When it comes to tackling bullying, NVC asks us to do something quite radical. It asks us to totally drop the static label of bully. Instead, as Rosenberg notes, we have to recognize that these intimidating acts are actually just tragic expressions of unmet emotional needs. Think about it. A person who is truly happy and fulfilled simply doesn't engage in bullying. So we can actually prevent these tragic expressions by spotting early physical signs of emotional distress in kids, way before the pain escalates into violence. The source material outlines key indicators like sleep disturbances, unexplained headaches, or sudden changes in eating habits. Catching these signs early means we can step in and address that ballooning pressure of unmet needs before someone lashes out. But when hurtful behavior has already happened, Rosenberg challenges our simple idea of punitive justice with 2 vital questions. 1, what do you want the child to do? And 2, what do you want their reasons to be for doing it? This really highlights that genuine behavioral change should come from empathy and a true desire to contribute, not just out of a fear of punishment, which honestly only breeds more resentment. We see this beautifully illustrated in a real-life sibling rivalry documented in our sources. A mother finds her 13-year-old son with clenched fists, breathing heavily, right on the verge of hurting his younger brother. Now, she skips the standard timeout lecture entirely. Instead, she takes a guess at his hidden need. She just asks, "Are you needing to feel that you belong?" Instantly, his fists relax, his breathing slows down, and his anger just melts into healing tears. Connection was the answer the whole time. Ultimately, the core takeaway from this explainer is a profound paradigm shift. Hurt people hurt people. But when we observe the facts and actually speak to the underlying needs, we have the power to break that cycle. So, I'll leave you with this. The next time you feel the urge to build a wall in an argument, ask yourself, what hidden need is actually crying out for a window?